Welcome to the Dean's Table. I'm Paul Ambrose, Dean of the College of Business and Economics, COBE, at UW-Whitewater. This podcast is all about journeys that our alumni have taken from the time here at COBE to where they are now. Every episode, I sit down with someone who's built something remarkable, not just a career, but a life. And I want to know, how did they do it? What were the pivots? The moments that changed everything. If you ever wondered what it really takes to build a meaningful career, or if you're navigating your own career path and need some perspective, this show is for you. Joining me is Gracie Weston, a recent COBE grad who keeps me honest and asks the questions young professionals really want answered.
Hi there. Thank you for having me.
So let's pull up a chair and get started. Hello, everyone. Today's guest is Patrick Jones. I'm very happy to have Pat with me here today. Pat is an alum of our accounting program, and he's got a fascinating story to share with us at what got him here and what he's up to these days and how he got to that point. So welcome, Pat.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
It's my first podcast, so I'm honored to.
Yeah, we're very happy to have you. So, Pat, could you start off by telling us a little bit about what brought you to Whitewater to pursue your degree? And then we'll dig a little bit into your experiences as you went through Whitewater.
Sure. Journey started. I grew up in Racine, Wisconsin. As a kid, I was always into, I'll call it yard-based businesses. So I was doing like raking leaves in the fall. I was shoveling my neighbor's driveways. Always kind of, like business. In high school, I took a accounting class and had this great accounting teacher who was actually a graduate of UW Whitewater. And so he was a big proponent. My senior year, he put me in a co-op program where I went to school half days, and then I worked at a company for half days doing accounting clerk type work, and decided that Whitewater, it was the only college I applied for, but it was a great fit for me. It was close to Racine. They had a very strong accounting program, and certainly his influence was, very impactful on that decision as well.
So you come here to Whitewater fall of '89. And could you share a little bit about your experience as a freshman?
Ooh, I was nervous. I remember the day before I left Racine, I was like, did I make the right decision? Is this going to be for me? How am I ever going to pass these classes? Show up on campus. I remember packing my all my household goods into Lee Hall, and my parents leave. And I remember panic kind of setting in, like, is this going to be right for me? But then I got to know some of my roommates in the dorms who are still my good friends, today, and really started to assimilate myself, into the university. And then once classes started getting the routine of classes, and things became, more comfortable. And I was like, okay, I can handle this. This is great. I could actually control my own schedule. The professors are super friendly. The coursework was certainly, very hard, but, I found it particularly challenging.
Would you say it was more of like a gradual transition for you, or was there like a moment that really like changed things for you of like, okay, this is where I'm meant to be?
I would definitely say there was probably 2 weeks in, and randomly I can remember sitting in a finite mathematics class, and up to that point I was a little bit overwhelmed with it. And I remember the professor coming and, working me through the problem, and then eventually being able to solve it. And I was like, okay, I can do this.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So it was, almost that exact moment. Because I can remember it was finite mathematics was the class. I'm not even sure if they still offer it today, but
They do.
of course but I was really struggling with the class up until then, and then realized, okay, if I can do finite mathematics, I think I can do.
Yes. Yes. Oh, I struggled through that class myself. Yeah, definitely.
But then you persisted.
That's
Yeah.
right.
So as you went through your 4 years here, what were if you could recall some of your impactful moments on campus?
Sure. I remember taking my first accounting class and being really excited about that. Also remember, being part of Beta Alpha Psi, which was the, accounting's, the extracurricular activities in terms of having the speakers come in and talk about their careers, also doing field trips and getting, that real life, practical experience. Then, of course, graduating, as well, huge accomplishment, just for our family, and having that as well.
So, as you went through our program, is there any things that you wish you had done different?
I wish I was more social, funny enough. So I consider myself a grinder, where, some folks can read a book and understand it and they're great. I had to read that book 20 times, take notes on that book, create flashcards to be able to understand the concepts behind it. And so I spent a lot of Friday nights in the basement of Lee Hall studying while friends were going
Yeah.
out. Probably missed out on a few too many, social activities, but wish I would have spent a little bit more time. Wish I was more engaged in Beta Alpha Psi. I will readily admit I did enough to make sure I got enough credit so I could be a, active member,
Mhm.
but, never served in an officer position and didn't kind of go the extra mile on that aspect because that aspect of, the social aspect, laughing about it, but that's such a critical part for your career. It was considered, you have your academics, you have your career experiences, but then there's your network.
Mhm.
All three of them are just as important. You have to think of them as a third, a third, a third, and having the social awareness, having that side to it is very critical to success.
Yeah.
So we can circle back to some of your college experiences as we go through too. But l- so you started here, but let's very quickly fast forward to today. So, and we can dig back from today into the past as well. So could you share with our viewers what you currently do?
Sure. So I serve as chief financial officer for a private equity backed company. The company essentially builds sports stadiums and puts the infrastructure on for live events. I've been working in the private equity industry since about 2006, and I tend to focus on the operating side of it. So I don't, spend too much time on the investment side. But when they buy a business, I come in, help operate it, and then ultimately sell it to create, that return for the private equity investors.
So that's a long way from 1992 to what you're doing today in private equity. And private equity is huge. I mean, it's a job that's demanding,
Yes.
challenging,
Yes.
and time is not yours. So let's now sort of bridge the gap between the time you graduated to the time we are in currently right now. So let's go back to the college. So college days. So you graduated in 1992. So let's talk a little bit about your early career. What did you do and how that shaped years to come later?
Sure. So the early days were serving as an auditor. I worked at KPMG in Chicago in their audit function, and then eventually transferred from Chicago in late 90s to their Silicon Valley office when the whole tech boom was going on out in California. So got some great foundational experience. I mean, I think the great thing about the audit world is it creates a really good foundation of the career. In a relatively young age, you're given a significant amount of responsibilities in terms of, making sure that you have to deliver on your audit areas. When you become a manager, you start, doing board presentations on the audit results. And so here you are in a room with the board of directors of large public companies, people you read about in, the Wall Street Journal or the Fortune magazine, and they're sitting across the table from you. So just a great experience at a relatively young age. And also too, just in terms of working within a team, and those teams can be local or I worked on the Intel account, so I had a global audit team, so I was able to have colleagues spread all across the world, and just a fantastic experience.
That's really
Yeah.
interesting. Yeah.
And so, yep, especially from what I'm hearing from our current alums, the first few years are hard, especially with an accountant. With the CPA, you're also working to, I don't quite recall what the rules were those days, but still you had to work towards your CPA licensing as well. And the burnout rate can be pretty high early days, but you've stuck on. Um, so, what are some of the things that you did to survive your early career days and then that actually made you who you are?
Sure, I would say grit, being able to just, even though you may be having a bad day or dealing with a difficult audit, just, keep showing up, keep getting out of bed, keep trying to solve the problem. Also too, tapping into my networks. A firm believer in having, a really, really good peer network. And when I was having problems that maybe you don't want to discuss
Uh-huh.
with somebody at the firm, but reaching out to your old college roommate who also happens to be working in the same
Uh-huh.
industry and saying, how did you tackle this? Very, very helpful to the career. And then, there's always going to be that work-life balance. Public accounting is very demanding. Lots of hours during the busy seasons or when a company is going to report on earnings. But I always found you have to balance if there's important personal things that you want to go to. You just have to communicate that well with your boss and then talk about your plan and making sure that you make them feel comfortable that you're going to, be able to deliver on what they need and then make sure everybody's on the same page. And that seems to have, worked out well.
Mhm. You you raised an important point, which I always tell students even these days: build those connections. When you're in college, it's just not to be in the classroom, but make friends,
That's right.
because the friends that you make during college are going to be your buddies, or things that you can bounce off there, right? I mean, later in life, and you want ideas or you want opportunities, those connections, networks are very important.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Critical to
Yep.
the career. As I said before, it's the third stool of your career.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, and similar to burnout, I think a lot of people early in their careers experience imposter syndrome, feeling like you don't really belong. Did you experience that at all? And like, how did you navigate that?
Great question. I still might have a little bit today of it, and certainly, I think that's probably helped me. Because I did feel like I needed to maybe, have to kind of prove myself. I remember moving over to the Home Depot and moving from an internal auditor role to their strategic business development department, and in that department was, a bunch of Harvard grads, Wharton, University of Chicago, and I didn't have my MBA at the time, and I was like, wow, I can't believe I'm working with somebody that went to Harvard or Wharton. And then I'm like, I'm just as capable of getting just as many deals done.
Mhm.
My Whitewater degree is pretty good, and I can be in the same room, as folks. And I think it's just a matter of getting in that room and realizing that the skill sets that you have, are transferable and that they're, just as effective. Where some folks maybe went to some of these other, fancy schools.
Yeah.
And that's a testament to all the faculty who were here before, as well here they are, and I'm always proud of them, of their commitment to make sure our students can succeed. Thank you for sharing your story about how your interaction with grads from other schools and you felt that you got a great education here.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Transitioning to early career to your mid career, how was that transition? And is there anything you'd like to share with our viewers on how to make a successful transition
Sure.
to the mid career from being a
Sure.
early career person?
Sure. Yeah, it's interesting. I left public accounting and I joined the Home Depot, which is, great Fortune 50 company, had a great career there. They gave me a wonderful foundation. And then I had the opportunity to go work in private equity for my first opportunity, but it was to be a chief financial officer for a $20 million business with 5 million in profits. And so leaving the Home Depot, which at the time was like 80 billion in revenue and 13 billion in profits, to jump over to this, smaller company, some folks thought I was crazy. They're like, I can't believe you're doing this. You're going to leave the Home Depot. But I saw the opportunity. I saw that that there was investors behind this business. They wanted to somebody come in and grow it. And also too, my job at Home Depot, when you're part of a large company, you're really siloed into your function. And so I was really just focused on, what I could deliver on the finance side. Being a chief financial officer for a mid-market company, you have a very broad role. I had human resources reporting to me, IT, marketing. I served as like the chief legal officer, so I had a much more broader just career opportunity there. And then ultimately, grew that business and then, sold it. And which it was anytime in the private world you have an exit, that's a super satisfying thing to have.
That's a big jump from Home Depot to a $20 million company, right? So that also, I've Okay, early in my career, I thought it was all these big companies and brand names that you should work for. I still remember early career, at least in my current academic life. I worked in private sector before. Uh, Talking to a student, the student had an offer from a big Wisconsin company and a small Wisconsin company. And he was asking me an advice. Where do I go? And to me, everything said, go work for this big company, get started. Interestingly enough, he chose the small company, and that company was there when the big company started to fold. So it's not all about the names, the big names, the big, what do you call the brand name companies you work for. You can contribute wherever you are and make a great career out of it.
That's right.
So that's something that I would like our listeners also to sort of pay attention to. It's not all about working for Harley Davidson, not just to name a company.
That's right.
But you can do equally well in a small manufacturing company.
That's right.
And wherever you feel comfortable.
That's right. The advice I always like to give is build your toolbox. This is the best advice I got from a mentor. Is like, you need to constantly make sure that you're stocking your toolbox as you're developing your career. And the smaller company may offer, much more broader, like maybe they are going to give you the opportunity to pursue, marketing, under your role, or, have you manage human resources. Those are great career broadeners that, make you more successful down the road.
So now we are fast forwarding to almost the present day. So you're in private equity and you've been in it for several years now. And
almost 20.
20 years.
Yeah, 20 is this.
20, soon after Home Depot. And then you moved into this.
That's right.
Is there something that you wish you had known before? At least the college prepared you better for it. And I will never claim that we are perfect. But I'm always curious to saying that is there something else that we could? It's all about continuous improvement. So especially to where you are, what you're doing right now, what are some of the skills? That we should be focusing more on, and maybe we could do better.
Sure. One, I think that I've learned in private equity is just, constructive debate. And when you go work in a private equity firm, they have a Monday morning meeting, and on that Monday morning meeting, they will typically present all their new investments. But what they do is they ask the most junior people in that room to give their perspective first, because they don't want, any ideas to be, influenced by the senior partners. Because if your senior partner says, I like this deal, most of the time, everybody's going to fall in line and say, I like this deal. And this is with any private equity firm in the United States that operates this way. So, being able to take a look at something and then be able to give your opinion on it, is something that's, very, very powerful. And the more you develop that, the younger you are, the more it's going to help you. And so, and again, you're not in there to throw mud in, folks' face, but be able to constructively debate on whether or not, you feel this is a good deal or not, and influence others, is a great skill to have. And then I would say in general, executive presence, it's something that is invaluable. The ability to walk into that room, be able to influence on decision making is super critical to your own career.
And perhaps I should have asked this a bit earlier too. A lot of us know private equity, but if someone who is new to this career or new to an accounting major or a finance major, if I were to tell them what private equity is,
sure,
how would you frame private equity?
Sure. Simply it's, private investors who invest in usually, family-owned businesses. And so the goal there is to take a, majority control in the investment, ultimately hold and grow that investment and then, sell it for a higher price, down the road to be able to return money back to investors. Typically investors are, extremely high net worth individuals, or it's pension funds, state pension funds looking to earn a little bit of additional return, or even, institutional firms as well.
So when we look at a career in private equity, it is not something that we specifically tailor a 17 to 20-year-old to get educated in that area. But when you look back, it's a combination of multiple skills. Of course, finance, accounting plays an important part. Coming from that background. But I would say in a holistic business degree. helps, and especially if someone has the fortune of even adding an MBA to it, because you're just not about dollars and cents as much as important it is. You're also dealing with people.
Mm-hmm.
You need to be able to. There's leadership involved. There are other skills that you learn in a 4-year degree. So again, another thing that I will tell, especially younger students, just don't look at your major as the thing that you're going to be. Your major offers you the technical skills in that specific area, but the degree offers the holistic background to be successful, because you can't just go to school to learn private equity.
Right.
Yeah, it is an important dimension of application of what you learn in college.
That's right. That's right.
Yep.
It goes back to that toolbox.
Yep.
Find the right skills. If you don't work in private equity, typically like, folks that have worked in investment banking, or that they're like, individuals that have done, heavy operational finance jobs. Those are some critical success skills.
And it builds up those what we call as the C-suite leadership skills that you're working towards. As you may not do it say consciously, but everything that you builds up to that.
That's right.
That's good. To sort of look at your career more in the bigger perspective, are there any highlights that you really enjoyed? In your career since '92, that you thought was, hey, that was fun.
Sure. I would say along the way, when I made manager at KPMG, that was a big, for me personally, it's always tough to, go from senior to a manager. At the Home Depot, I won the CFO Excellence Award, and so in the whole company, receive that. And then also too, I would say when I sold Addison Group, so it was my first private equity deal. And that was the company I left Home Depot for, and joined in Chicago. We grew that business from 20 million in revenue to over 200 million. And so got my first exit. And then I'd say moving over to Singapore was a big career event, just in terms of helping build up my international finance experience and being able to, take on a chief financial officer role in a whole different country, and where all the my employees were down in Jakarta, Indonesia, and be able to manage not only, non-English speaking, team, but also two totally different culturally, as well. Really, really great career experience. And then, certainly have had other successes when I worked with Lineage Capital, had 3 successful exits when I was with that firm, as well.
Again, your Singapore experience is interesting that you mention it, because while we are here in college, when students, we always tell, at least this college tells our students, to get that international exposure. It doesn't have to be traveling abroad per se. In multiple ways you can be with somebody different. If you have an opportunity to interact with an international student, get to know them, because it goes beyond just being very clinical and working in another culture. It is about embracing the culture holistically. So I know the campus would allow a lot more of our students to study abroad or do a travel study. I wish we could do more, but I would continue to encourage our students to do that, because there's no substitute to being there. You don't want to suddenly be thrown into something and an opportunity comes any part of the world. And having those experiences upfront in college, enjoying the culture, I think that will be very interesting.
Definitely.
Yeah, there's students from Germany and the Netherlands that come here in the fall, and then we send students in like spring, summertime, and they do like sales competitions together. I didn't go abroad, but I did get to interact with them, and they were here, and it was just super cool. Even just being like, am I pronouncing this right? Like, I don't know, it was just a really fun experience to get to meet those students, and now we're friends on social media and like that kind of thing. So I totally agree that those are experiences that you don't need to go elsewhere, to your point, Paul, to get them, but I think they are invaluable regardless.
They really are. I mean, if anybody who has the chance to go work overseas or have the opportunity, even just to take on a project for work for a few weeks where you're overseas, invaluable to the career.
So we are sort of coming to the end of our podcast. So we always ask our guests to address students who seem to be sitting on the fence about their career. I don't know where to go, what to do. They could be undecided about their major. They could be undecided about a career path. And they're sometimes even close to graduation. What are some of the things that you'll tell them to do to get that, what do you call, the uncertainty out of their lives?
Yeah, I would say if you're in that situation, that's where you want to do your own skill assessment and kind of determine, okay, what motivates me? What is going to motivate me to get out of bed and to, go to a job and not just consider it a job, but really consider it a career. And so look at the skills, look at, the different career opportunities and try to find something that is going to, match up really well for what you find is challenging and something that's inspiring to you.
Yeah. Pursue your passion and persist.
That's right.
And things would work out.
That's right.
I mean, it doesn't necessarily that you're doing what you're passionate about at some point in time, but keep at it. Finish your degree.
That's right.
You would be able to find your niche or your groove.
That's right.
At some point in time. Pat, is there anything else that you'd like to share with us?
I'll probably just leave with it's very important to I always like to give the advice of have mentors in your career, but also sponsors in your career. So the mentors are maybe your old college roommate whose career is progressing the same as yours, where you can bounce ideas off each other and call them up when times are tough. Mm-hmm. Now, sponsors are somebody who's like, in a significant leadership position that can help advance your career. And with those, you may not get them on a, weekly basis or even monthly, but, go have breakfast every quarter or, go out to lunch, but make sure you only tell them the good, because ultimately down the road, they're probably going to have an opportunity for your career and that you always want to make sure that they see you in the best light. And so, cultivating your sponsors, continue to have those deep relationships with your mentors has been invaluable mm-hmm. to myself. And it's something that I always, push with students.
Valuable insights indeed. Pat, it's a pleasure talking to you today. And thank you for taking the time of your day to come and talk to us. I'm sure our readers would have picked some valuable insights into this. And be in touch, and I look forward to seeing you again.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for joining us today. Stories like this are exactly why we do this show, to highlight the foundational moments that make up our careers.
Yes, thank you for joining us today.
If you enjoyed this conversation, subscribe to the Dean's Table wherever you listen to your podcasts. And if this episode resonated with you, share it with someone else that could benefit from it. Dean's Table is part of the Warhawk Business Voices podcast network. You can find all our episodes at uww.edu/cobe/podcasts. I'm Paul Ambrose.
And I'm Gracie Weston.
And we'll see you at the table next time.